Good morning. This Shabbat will be heavy on our hearts. We are in the midst of the Shiva for the 6 hostages who were rescued by the IDF on Saturday, August 31st. And unfortunately, we learned that the 6 were killed by Hamas just a day or 2 days before they were ultimately rescued. Of course, we recall that on October 7th, approximately 250 people were taken hostage, and in the 336 days since they have been captured, some have been released alive, and some, unfortunately, have been released and not alive. The death of Hersh Goldberg Polin stings particularly to us. And it is not because Hersh is, as a life, more valuable or worthwhile than anyone else who is in captivity. It's because his parents, who are from Northern California, have made it their understandable life's mission to keep Hersh's plight in front of the world, and as such become really representative, really an exemplar, really an avatar for all the other hostages who are held and have been held. And because Hersh was only 23, and because he was so full of life and we learned so much about his life, his death feels particularly personal and weighs on us in a particularly painful way. Perhaps you were someone who watched Hersh's funeral, which was live streamed from Jerusalem this past Monday. Perhaps you felt the pain, which would only be a fraction of the pain felt by Hersh's mother and father and by his siblings and extended family and the people who actually knew him. But in some way, Hersh represented to all of us. And the pain of the Goldberg Polin family has been carried with us in a small measure since October 7th. It's hard, very hard, to find any good or positive to come out of this. And I like to teach positive messages about Judaism. So over the past several days, I've been thinking about what message I could deliver to you that was positive. And I'd like to conclude with this message. The Talmud spends some time asking a rather odd question about a person born with 2 heads. Not because a person is actually born with 2 heads and not because it's a real situation. The Talmud uses this extreme example in order to make a point. And the Rav, Joseph Soloveitchik, one of the 20th century's greatest halachists and rabbis and scholars, who was the Rosh Yeshiva at Yeshiva University, used the Talmud's teaching tool to ask the following question. How do we know someone with 2 heads is one person or 2? And the answer, said the Rav, was that if we pour water, hot water on one head and both heads feel pain, we know that it is one person. And the Rav used that example to make a point about the people of Israel. How do we know we are one person? How do we know we are one people? Because when one person is hurt, the entirety of the house of Israel feels pain. I think this past week, there is no body with even a scintilla of a Jewish soul who did not feel great pain at the news that these 6 hostages were rescued, but unfortunately were dead. I think all of us felt the deep pain, whether we lived here in the States or in Europe or in South America or in Israel or in Russia. No matter where we live as Jews, I think the realization, the knowledge, the information about the death of Hirsch and the other 5 hostages this week was like pouring scalding water on the head of the people of Israel. And all of us felt that burning pain deeply. And if there's any positive message, it is that we realize, despite our differences, despite the fact that we may observe Judaism in different ways, despite the fact that we may feel we are not religious or very religious, despite the fact that we may feel disconnected or more connected to the Jewish people in this past week, any person who even has the smallest measure of Jewishkeit in them felt pain. And this really is a testimony to the great unity of the Jewish people, that despite all the odds, despite all of the protests, despite all of the angst, much of it justified, we are in the end one people. And at this moment, we are deeply in pain, and we are searching for a way that our pain should be eased. I want to invite you in that spirit to join us this evening, Friday evening, in the Gore Sanctuary. We will hold a special moment of Kaddish for Hirsch and for the other 5 hostages who were arrested, and really in the spirit of all of the hostages, those who hopefully are still alive, those who have been rescued, those who have perished. And that we join together as one people, reminded that when one of us is hurt, all of us are hurt. I look forward to seeing you in the Gore Sanctuary. Shabbat Shalom.